This is the Moon Tower Podcast with your host, Ian Hubbard. We live? Are we live? Are we alive, Nate?
Check my pulse, and we're good.
All right, let me check my blood. All right, we're live, folks. This is the inaugural episode of the Moon Tower Podcast with your host, Ian Hubbard. To my right is Nate Fitch, my technical advisor. Tell the folks at home, say hi, Nate.
Hello, and do you accept the nomination for this podcast?
Do I? I might as well. I'm fucking here.
All right.
All right, folks. We're coming to you live. Well, by the time you hear this, it'll be already recorded. So, one of these days it'll be live. From the skyline of Old Toledo, Ohio, the great glass city. Breaking glass ceilings in the glass city. You can't lead off with that. We're going to keep it, though.
Yeah, let's get the brass tacks here.
Yeah, let's get the brass tacks here. A lot of you may be wondering where I've been at the last few days, few weeks, probably the last few years. Hell, I haven't seen a lot of you. Just got back from vacation. Had a great vacation. Went to Boston, which oddly enough, no one there under the age of 40 fucking talks like that. Did you know that? Did I tell you that?
Yeah. You're telling me about
Yeah,
that.
only silver hairs and fucking Gen X cats fucking talk like that.
Yeah, well, what do you think about that?
What do I think about it? I was actually very surprised about it. Another thing I was surprised about with Boston, a lot of Asians. I don't have a problem with that.
There's a lot of Asians everywhere, though.
There's a lot of Asians everywhere now. Not that that's a bad thing.
Oh, yeah. No.
Depending on who you ask,
Yeah,
maybe.
good appropriation to our,
Well,
melting pot of culture.
doesn't help that they're always getting my fucking wet now. I got nothing against the Asians.
I get wet for Asians.
You get what? You get the wet. You get the wet Asian.
Yeah, I get wet for wet back.
Oh, we're keeping that. We're keeping that. Yes, Nate Fitch gets wet for Asians. No, had a great fucking time. Real quick, just like to give a shout out to some people for helping me out with this whole vacay. Kelly in Boston. I'll withhold last names for copyright infringement purposes. My girl Kelly in Boston. Round of applause. Golf clap. No, helped out a lot. Had a great place to stay. Downtown, right in the heart of things. It's fucking great. It was beautiful. A lot of skyline, a lot of great people. If you've never been, I'll give you a quick tour. It's a big city.
It's huge.
It's huge. Fucking huge. No, it took me by surprise. Like, it was pretty easy to get around. I was a big boy and managed the subways fairly decent, as you should in any major metropolitan area. One of the big things, though, is one of my travel guides, if I may present one, is you got to go on foot as soon as you get there. Doesn't matter where you're at. In-state, out-of-state, international, intergalactic, doesn't fucking matter. You got to go on foot just so you can get the vibe of wherever you're at. It's always, Then I have to admit I attribute one part of my newly resonated travel guide to an old quote. I think it was from Ernest Hemingway. He said, and I'm probably paraphrasing, he said, in order to understand the culture of a place, you have to hit the bars. So,
True that.
First actual day, I got in late. It was a late flight. I had this whole idea since I was flying for the first time, which was a fucking hoot. I'm sure many of you who are listening to this are going like, oh, that's not blah, blah, blah. But, I'm pushing 30. I'm getting up there. In my fucking old days. Figured, if I'm going to travel extensively, or at least I want to, airplane might be a good idea instead of train or bus. And any of you taking a Greyhound know that hell on wheels. That's just basically what it is. It for the most part, you'll meet some interesting cats. Like I went to the Derby. I think I told you this, Nate. Went to the Kentucky Derby this past May, I guess I can call it now, and took the Greyhound and ended up having a layover in Indianapolis. The bus was late, so didn't get to fucking Louisville until 5 in the morning, 4:30, and then on the way back, this is great. The bus broke down. I don't know if you ever had this experience, but I highly recommend it to no one unless you really want to end your three night stay in a valuable way. But no, flew for the first time. It was a lot better than I expected. Leading up to it, I had so many people. Like I talked to so many people because obviously a lot of my friends have flown, and they were like giving me tips. And one friend was like, my friend Jody was like, "Oh, you like roller coasters?" I'm like, "No, no." That, being someone that's been frightfully scared of heights basically their whole life. I mean, when I was 13, I went to the top of the Sears Tower. That was close to a religious experience. Very close. Oddly enough, I was part of a church group, so.
Oh, well, all I want to know is, did you see God up there?
No, I saw a lot of fucking clouds, though. But, yeah, that was one thing. That was my first foray into the whole breaking the cherry on the heights was Sears Tower at night, Saturday night of all nights. So, downtown Chicago, it's flooded with, business and people and the nightlife and all that shit. And, you take the, one of the fastest elevators in all of the U.S. and, like, so fast your ears pop and 10 stories a second or half a minute or whatever the fuck it is.
Hey, escalator business got to, get their head in the game.
Yeah, high flight escalators. That's actually sounds really fun. I might actually do that.
Right.
Top
That's what I'm saying.
top thrill dragster on the escalator.
Shit, fast ass stairs. I mean, it's better than taking the regular stairs.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Just strap you in, just shoot you out, and you shit your pants on the way. It'd be fun. But no, did that, and then fast forward 16 years and taking a flight for the first time. Flew out of Detroit, which is actually I learned. I don't know if you've ever been to an international airport, which is I've learned this. Detroit actually is. You're technically in international territory.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never flown anywhere. Which way? How? Just small aircraft, really. So.
Yeah, I went with Delta on advice from a colleague. Delta, I don't know anyone's preference, but Delta is usually pretty solid, at least in my very limited experience.
Haven't heard a lot bad about Delta.
It's comfortable.
The last couple of years.
It's actually very comfortable. But no, yeah, Detroit, went up there and went through customs and did the whole TSA thing. They didn't pat me down. I didn't get frisked. I did on the way back from LaGuardia. That was fun when I was all disheveled. But I'll get to that in a few minutes. But coming out of Detroit, that was okay. Everything went smooth. It was a late flight. I worked that day, so I'm thinking like, if I bust ass at work, I get up, ride to Detroit. Thanks once again, Big John, for the ride. Big John. And, I figure if I get there late enough, it was a 10 o'clock flight, get into Boston about 11:40, midnight-ish. That was the scheduled plan. So, I figure if I work that day and fly out and I'll be tired on takeoff, I'll just kind of sleep through the whole thing. $10 beers at the airport. In case anyone wants to know, bring some dough if you want to drink. You're gonna need it. They have I did not know this. I did not know that international airports have liquor stores.
Ooh,
Yeah,
it's good to know.
your eyes lit up like mine did. Unfortunately, I didn't have the wherewithal to be like, hey, you got shooters, so I can just put these in my bag and level off. But no, it was.
Man, you need glycerin sacks. You can hide them up your ass and have them for later.
Now that I know that literally right now, it was a good time. And, I got on the flight and there's a Austrian named Bennett yeah, I was kind of talking to him on before we took off and whatnot. I was telling him, I was like, I've never done this before. And you got to talk in hushed tones because I didn't want to be like standing out, like, oh, you've never flown before,
I don't know. Did you tell Bennett to chill?
No, he told me to chill. That was great. He was a fucking great coach, man. He was, and he's like coaching me through it, and like the plane started to like slowly run down the runway, and I look out kind of the glare of the caddy corner window because I had mine shut. Yeah, first flight ever, I get a window seat. So, way to break your cherry, right? But no,
To do it.
yeah, but yeah, went down and takeoff was fine, and the elevation, that was because you get thrown back into the seat when it gets fully fucking
Yeah, you
going.
get a little bit of pressure there.
Yeah. And he's telling me, he's like, I don't do Austrian accents very well, so excuse me. He's like, you ever been in a fast car? I'm like, yeah, I've been in a fast car. He's like, you know that feeling when you get pushed back against the seat when it really accelerates? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you should feel that. If you don't feel that, that's bad. I'm like, oh, okay. And then when that happened, I had my hoodie on and had my hood up, and I'm like, got my eyes all tight, and I'm like gripping the seat. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Fucking straight out like fucking Total Recall, dude. It was like Total Recall plus Days of Thunder meets a Greyhound 30,000 feet in the fucking air. Which is another thing I was kind of like freaking out about, because like, oh, you're all jam packed in there, and you don't really feel it until you're in the air. And I'm like, oh, great, so it's a fucking 30,000 foot Greyhound. Which, once again, if you've ever been in a Greyhound, you know the feeling. Just plus 5 miles.
The more you know.
Yeah. But no, as soon as we leveled off and we're in the air, and he was showing me like all the gadgets on the screen, and like, oh, you can track your flight, which is pretty cool. And they had the in-flight entertainment. Just jammed out some fucking Def Leppard and a little bit of Frank Sinatra, and try to watch part of Wall Street, even though it was edited. Which, if any Delta employees are listening, one complaint that I have is that you should not edit your films. I can.
Censorship is for pussies.
You know what? I have to agree with you on that, especially when it's like the bad overdub, like the way USA Channel used to, or I don't know if they still do. I don't have cable. The way they'd overdub their movies, like where it's blatantly noticeable.
I think worst case I feel is I was watching Leon the Professional.
Mm.
And what was it? Fuck. They're like I fucked it up.
Well, the one. Remember the one that we'd always joke about was the Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
It's like,
oh yeah.
this is what happens later when you feed a stranger spaghetti in the Alps instead of fuck a stranger in the ass. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't comically bad, but it was definitely noticeable. Anyway.
Oh, no. Okay. So it was Leon the Professional. Instead of saying bullshit, they said bull honky. That was the best.
Bull hockey?
Bull honky.
Honky.
Bull honky. Bull honky!
One more for the peanut gallery.
Bull honky.
Honky. No, the flight was great. It was like first time, descent. That was actually probably my favorite part. Boston's all lit up at 11:30 at night or 11:15 or whatever, and it kind of looked like a snow globe in a way. Like the plane started to tilt in to make its descent, and like the fucking city kind of tilted in reverse. So it was like, whoa,
Shit.
Yeah, it was fucking wild, dude. Landing, everyone said like takeoff and landing are the worst parts. Takeoff was the worst part for me. Landing was fine. That was nothing. That was basically like you come to the end of a roller coaster.
That's the expectation I kind of have for large scale flights and all that.
Yeah, but got in, got to Kelly's place, and she showed me like the subway maps and whatnot. You go here to get the station's right down the street. Blah blah blah. Woke up, took a shower, got all prepped up. Always have a lot of pockets on me if you don't have a fanny pack, which I don't. Plus it was hot as balls, so I didn't want to have my jacket. So Went down to the station, went down to the market, which if you've never been to Boston, they have a great public market. Highly recommend it. If you want to get well accustomed to, like, the food and gathering of people and the whole vibe, walk down the public market. They have fucking everything. Oh, yeah, basically everything. They had like a flavored nut stand where I got some limoncello lavender cashews.
Reminds me of what is it? Cleveland. They got the West Side Market.
Yeah.
I imagine that's like a miniaturized version of that.
Yeah, it's basically like a mini version of like the Cleveland West Side Market or the Over the Rhine in Cincy, where they have that big ass fucking like 4 block or however big it is market. They got a stand that you can get, grass fed, farm raised, pasture raised fucking farm food like, beef, pork, and chicken and whatnot. They got a fresh seafood case, homemade crab cakes. They had mako shark, dude.
Ooh,
like
I
caught.
love me some mako.
They had fucking, obviously lobsters and oysters and crab and the whole works. And, they had a pastrami stand. They had a fucking beer and wine stand. They had fucking crepes, like fresh crepes made right there. They had a big Asian mart, once again with the Asians. Everything was basically made like right there in front of you. So it wasn't like Ruben's Deli or Raymond's or Ramone's, Ramone's down here by the bus station, where they basically just take it out, make it, and put it in the microwave. But no, hit the Freedom Trail, and that's basically all the old bars like from modeled off the Revolutionary period, like.
Freedom.
Yeah, for sure.
Freedom to drink beer.
Freedom to drink. The beer was actually pretty fucking good.
Hell yeah.
My recommendation, the Green Dragon. They have a lot of. It's kind of like an antique store,
Okay.
but it's a bar. Like they got like a whole bunch of like fucking knickknacks and paddywhacks and give a dog a bone shit, and I ended up
like a 5 and dime shop.
Yeah,
You can drink there.
yeah, exactly. I mean, you couldn't buy anything except beer and food, but like it was cool to look at, and they had like a bunch of emblems and shit like that. And I got to meet his name was Michael. I noticed him because he was dressed as a redcoat. He was dressed as a fucking British soldier from the Revolutionary period. Sat down right next to me, started drinking, and Chris the bartender, he was the first one to have the Boston accent. So I'm like, all right, I'm definitely talking to you because you're from here.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, like no one there that I really met that was like our age, like 20s and early 30s, like roughly, there's a shit ton of transplants. Obviously, like that whole like Boston mystique. I'm waving my arms around to be very expressive. The whole cliche of the whole accent and all that shit. Yeah, that's not there because the city's full of transplants basically anymore. So the whole like neighborhood vibe, it's still there, like, but you'll get people that weren't born there but they've lived there for like 10, 12 years. And everyone and all those cats are always like, yeah, all you're gonna do is like eat and drink in town, and you go here and you see this, and that's really all there is to do. But you meet a townie, they know, like especially in a fucking big city like that and shit. But I told him, I was like, what else is there to do? Like, I'm gonna get the eating and drinking part pretty well down by myself,
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, rest of Freedom Trail, that'll lead you to the monument, JFK Library is right on the cusp of South Boston. That was actually really great. I'll get to that in a minute. And he just kind of like gave me like a breakdown. And Mike, the just returned from Scotland. He was on 2 weeks in Scotland with some family, seeing some shit and whatnot. Like I said, I asked him, I was like, so what's with the getup, dude? And he's like, I do tours for the Freedom Trail and the harbor and the monument, and fucking they have the Tea Party monument, which is over the bridge.
Okay.
Which is actually cool, but did a lot of walking, ate up. I had bar oysters that were a buck a piece, They were just as good as the oysters you can get down at fucking
Oh,
Real
yeah,
Seafood
man.
down here.
Hell, you get a lot of fresh seafood right
Well,
there.
yeah, it's like
Yeah, you can't go wrong.
like even for fucking bar oysters, yeah, they were tip top. Like literally like buck a piece. I was like, give me 8. Just want to see. She gave me the horseradish and the fucking whatever little sauce. She walked away, took somebody else's order, came back. I was done with them. And well, the cool thing was is like they brought them in on a plate of ice, which is fucking sweet.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, even for fucking bar oysters, this is pretty tip top. But hit the rest of Freedom Trail, saw a lot of the historical stuff. The next day, came back. I hit the JFK library, the presidential library. If you're a history buff, if you're a fan of that era, the early Cold War, especially Camelot and early Vietnam and shit like that, of that period of time, definitely hit that up. It's actually very well done, very intricate museum. A lot of stuff from his early days, stuff from his time in the Senate, a lot of like diary entries, his books. Oddly enough, kind of like the book depository building, Oswald wasn't there, so they're very thorough in their research. But it had a lot of paintings and photos and political cartoons from the 50s and 60s, like especially like him and Khrushchev and Mao and shit like that, and had old footage from press conferences that he would have with the press corps and whatnot. One of the cool things too was they had part of John Glenn's, part of the hub of John Glenn's first orbit.
Okay.
The space shuttle or shuttle, is it shuttle? There's a difference.
Yeah, some sort of small spacecraft.
Yeah, the craft. I'll call it the craft. That he had. It was there encased behind glass. It's right by the harbor. Beautiful. It's very well worth it, and it's free to get in.
Ooh,
So
that's even better.
yeah, I mean, because it's a publicly funded museum. Obviously, they want to keep that alive, and
And that's why we need to keep PBS alive.
yeah,
Well,
always. But went to Harvard, went up to Harvard Square. That was interesting. A lot of mom and pop shops. It's literally like you look at my wall here, and it's like one section, and then another section, another store, then another store, and another store, and all the way down. A lot of great delis, a lot of great fucking butcher shops, liquor stores. If you can't find it's one of those places. If you can't find a place to eat, you're dumb or blind, or you're just stupid.
and that's also what I've been told being a line cook. If you're a line cook and you're hungry, you're probably an idiot.
Yeah, that's a good assumption.
Yep.
But hit the public gardens and parks and whatnot. Hit Beacon Street, which is like where a lot of the old money is. They still have like the cobblestone and brick sidewalks and streets and whatnot. They got like the old, I think it's Victorian. I want to say it's Victorian style, like apartment buildings.
Okay.
Like it's literally like there's no yards, so it's literally just all the way across, literally wall to wall apartments and buildings and shit. It's beautiful, fucking beautiful. But like I said, a lot of the old money, and I think the youngest people I saw were part of tour groups, because like you can take tours of the neighborhoods and shit.
Yeah.
That's off of downtown. Like and you'd imagine like it takes about 25 to 35 minutes at least by subway just to get anywhere. I mean, you expect that. You expect to ride the bus and take the subway and walk and shit. And every day I was there, I was fucking, and oddly enough, same in New York, I was exhausted by the time I got home and went to sleep. Great place to be. If you've never been, I do recommend it. I think I might have overstayed my stay. I spent 3.5, 4 days-ish there just because I wanted to kind of prepare myself for the Big Apple, which once again I don't know why they call it that. You can't find fucking apples anywhere besides Trader Joe's.
No. Fruit's hard to come by in the Northeast too.
Yeah, but after that, took the Amtrak through Rhode Island and no, excuse me, Connecticut, and New Hampshire, and went into New York. I got in New York, right in the middle of Manhattan, Penn Station at like 4 o'clock, and it was actually pretty cool. I posted. I don't think I posted the picture, but I did post that the railway came over the Bronx and was perpendicular with the Brooklyn Bridge.
Okay.
And had the fucking skyline in the back. And it was kind of like a gray, kind of gloomy day. So it kind of had that New York vibe that, everyone talks about. New York's New York. It's whatever you expect it to be, it is.
Yep.
Like
big, obnoxious, and loud.
Loud and
everything
concrete.
great that comes with it.
Yeah, and it keeps changing. Fucking, they'll never finish it. They literally just keep building shit. Like, regardless of whatever it is. Like, there's scaffolding everywhere. There's fucking construction crews everywhere. There's cleanup crews everywhere.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
Yeah. Oh, it's like here, but it's like just kind of like part of the city. Here, it's obnoxious.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, even at nighttime, they don't stop working. They just keep doing whatever they're doing.
That's how it should be.
Here, they'll just like stop at 3 o'clock and then leave, and then there's fucking nothing but cones and shit. Yeah. So, like, first introduction to the Big Apple. And like I said, it was like what I would quantify as with LA, because when I went to LA for 2 weeks, I went through the desert of New Mexico and through Arizona and shit on the train, and there's nothing. Fucking nothing. There's desert. There's literally just, like, even the fucking, like, there's no greenage. There's just yellow dirt and hills that are dirt and rock. And,
Yep.
Part of the Amtrak station when I went through New Mexico was pretty sweet because, it went through, like, the mountains, like the deep,
yeah.
like the Southwest mountains. They weren't, it was built into it, so it looked like mountains because it was, everything elevated upwards, and you could see all the erosion and shit, like the natural erosion. And it was cool because there was, like I said, there's nothing. Then you get to LA, and it takes up fucking 2 counties worth of land, the city by itself. And there's just everything everywhere. Concrete, steel, people, brick. And it's so just vast that anything that you could possibly imagine going on at that point that you think about it is probably happening. And I said this, and once I finally hit Manhattan, because I was in Lower Manhattan, well, like where the action is in Times Square and Rockefeller Center and shit like that.
Yeah.
Everything that you've ever heard about it, regardless of whether or not it's true, is true. It could be the most bullshit fucking lie you've ever heard in your life, but if you're there, it's probably true. And more likely is true.
I guarantee it.
Yeah, like, yeah, shoot your fingers. But no, it was wild, and I walked around probably 800 blocks in the first 3 hours I was there. Hit the subway. Didn't expect this coming out of Penn Station. The escalator that I took going down to the subway station after I made my way through Manhattan. It's literally on almost a direct down incline.
Oh damn!
And I've got my backpack full of shit, and I tend to get vertigo every once in a while because I had fucked up ears when I was a kid, so my balance is a little jacked up.
Yeah.
So I'm like standing there, like leaning against the fucking rail, like with my 20-pound backpack full of shit, like trying not. I'm like, I'm gonna fall face first down this fucking escalator, and it's gonna be to everyone, it's gonna be either hilarious or horrifying or both. Well, I'm like, I'm not doing that right now. So I'm like leaning, it's like looking stupid, but like people were like going upwards, like on the other side, and they're just like, "What the fuck's he doing?" Tourist. Yeah, but I went to the White House, I tell you that. I went to the White House, went to Trump Tower.
Oh, yeah.
You're only allowed to go up 4 stories.
That's garbage.
You're only allowed to go up the first 4 floors. I wonder why.
Sad.
No, well, and also, it's solid fake gold and marble. It's actually quite nice if you didn't know where you're at. Like, oh, I'm going into the fucking 8th layer of hell. This is gonna be great. But it looks beautiful. But toured around, went to the village, ended up and I met up with my friend Katie and old friend. Like, when I initially said I was gonna do this whole trip, I put it out. I was like, so if I do this, is there gonna be any place to stay? And she came out. She's like, I live on Staten Island with my husband and my kid. You're more than welcome to stay with us. I just got to run it by him. Just let me know what your plans are. And I'm like, I have not fucking talked to you in probably 6 or 7 years. It was fucking wild. I was just like, what? All right.
Hey,
I mean, if you're offering, I'm
Friends in
taking.
high places.
Yeah, no shit. And met up with her in the village. Greenwich Village is actually pretty sweet. I liked it. It kind of had like a not small town feel, but the thing about the boroughs in New York is that, like, they're all cities. They're all like different cities in a big, giant, vast city. If that makes any fucking sense.
Yeah.
And I think Greenwich Village was probably my favorite. It had like the whole like Bob Dylan vibe, from the '60s, and the whole bohemian vibe. It's not really there anymore. Like,
it changes a couple of years there.
50 years of whatever, it's definitely going to change. But note to any listeners, if you go there expecting that, you're going to be dissatisfied. Just letting you know. It's a small, big city within a vast, giant, fucking gargantuan behemoth monolith of another fucking city. Behemoth. But,
Pending.
yeah. If you're in Greenwich Village, on Mondays at the Three Sheet Saloon, they have half off drinks. And what that means is that you're basically, if you're from the Midwest, you're paying regular bar prices there. Also, if you go to McSorley's, which is right around, it's still in the village, but it's a little more towards Manhattan. It's like an old style, like, saloon almost, like a straight up, like, they got shit from like the late 1800s, like newspaper clippings and pictures, like old ass fucking pictures, like black and white, hard grain pictures of just people that worked there from like the early 1900s and the Depression era and shit like that. And it's like one of those old pubs where like they serve the beer in fucking 10-ounce glasses, 10-ounce mugs. Half of it's head, but it like fizzles down into actual beer. And they come out, it's like one of those ones, like they got like 3 or 4 mugs on each finger. Like, dude showed me this, I think it was Rudy, is his name? Rudy or Randy or Ron or whatever. He showed me a picture of him and one of the barkeeps, and they got like fucking 10 glasses on each hand.
Jesus.
And it's one of the ones where they come out and like they slam the fucking glass on the
Yep.
table to like even out whatever is in the fucking mug. And he's like, show me all this shit. And he's like, yeah, one of the things that we do here is new people come in and you're not drinking, you gotta leave. You at least gotta get up. You don't have to leave, but you gotta get up from your table. If you come in here, you're fucking drinking. I'm like, that's some hardline shit. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that's some actor respect right there.
So we're like,
drinking,
yeah.
stinking.
And we're like chit chatting with the locals and shit, and ended up. I remember Katie was like, Coyote Ugly's around here. I'm like, you fucking have a Coyote Ugly around here? She's like, yeah, you want to go? It's only Monday night. I'm like, I'll go. Just say I went, and I actually had a fucking way better time than I expected to. Ended up partying with some whacked out Mexican dude who was handing out favors in the bathroom. But yeah, that was the first night. And then we took a cab ride from fucking the village to the Staten Island ferry, which is about a 20-minute cab ride. Waited a half hour for the ferry. The ferry ride from fucking The tip of Lower Manhattan to actual Staten Island is another about 25, 30 minutes. But I got to see Lady Liberty at nighttime. You know,
Ooh,
she was all lit up, which is hilarious. If you've never seen her in person, thanks France, by the way. Half of the actual statue is the base. She's actually a lot shorter in person. Like
that makes sense.
she'd probably be a decent point guard in the WNBA, but she's not. Yeah, she's not blocking shots or getting rebounds. She's doing assists. But went there. We ended up having to take like another 20-minute fucking railway train ride to her place. So by the time like I got up at 7:30 in Boston for a 12 o'clock fucking train ride, by the time to get to New York by 4, by the time I got to her place at fucking Staten Island and got to bed, it was 5 a.m. This is after like toting around all my shit, wiped out,
Yeah.
fucking exhausted. I woke up at like noon the next day, and I'm just like, all I want to do is lay here. But if I just keep laying here, I'm just gonna waste this day away, and I've got shit to do. So it's like, I had to basically like force myself out of bed, take a shower. And it was funny because her kid's like 3.5, 4, whatever.
Youngin.
She was still in bed. Katie was. I'm taking a shower, and her kid thinks that mommy's in the shower. So she comes knocking on the door. Mommy, are you in there? And I'm just like, no, go away. I'm not your mom, and don't open that door unless you want to see a naked man for the first time at an early age, which you shouldn't. Unless it's your dad is a goof. Where,
You know.
yeah, that would have been fucking wicked awkward. And then went back to the ferry, went from Lower Manhattan to fucking Harlem, where Blaine and GB, once again, thank you very much for your hospitality. They let me stay there. Walked from fucking Harlem to Spanish Harlem, which is like another 185 blocks. I'm exaggerating, obviously. Went through the Apollo. They had the Aretha Franklin Memorial set up in front with all the flowers and shit, which is fucking very beautiful. Ate at a great Mexican place. Went to a couple bars. You know, once again, you got to walk and catch the bars to catch the culture, in my opinion. At least starting out. Zigged this is one of the few actual mistakes I made. Zigged when I should have zagged on the subway, because that was the thing. Like, if you're another travel guide recommendation, if you're ever lost or if you ever like don't really know which way you're gonna go, fucking ask one of the tellers. They'll tell you. The most they'll do is give you a dirty look, just because they probably get asked that same shit like 100 times a day.
Yeah, that's your job, though.
So as a goof, what I would do half the time is like cop an accent. Just like, excuse me, does this go to this way or that way? And they're like, which way you trying? And I tell them, and it's like, all right, yeah, let's go. I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, always do that. Ended up in the Bronx. So I hit the Bronx for about an hour, and then was able to fucking catch a bus back. 'Cause I was gonna go to the Bronx, but I was gonna go to this place called City Island, which is like apparently a pretty bitchin' seafood place, like on the outskirts of the Bronx.
Hell yeah.
Went back next day, hit some more in Manhattan, and then next day I went to Brooklyn. I was deciding I was going to go to Coney Island, see what that was all about. Coney Island's actually pretty cool. Once again, thanks, Katie. It was actually my last actual day in New York. Where was I at? Oh, fuck. Day before, I actually went to Central Park and went to the Guggenheim. Went around like some more Manhattan. Then next day when I was in Brooklyn, ended up in downtown Brooklyn at the shopping. Oh, after I fucking walked the bridge, which to any of you travel junkies, if you haven't walked the bridge, warning, I thought the bridge was made 100% out of concrete. Completely out of fucking concrete. It's not. The main walkway is made out of wood. And not solid like sheets of wood or blocks of wood, like wood planks. like you would get on like a fucking by bridge or some shit. The wood planks move under your feet to catch the balance.
Oh, damn.
I did not know this, and everyone's like standing around, and for good reason, standing around taking pictures and selfies and shit. And fucking, I'm just marching through like a German soldier on my way to fucking France, like sweating. It was hot as balls. Trying not to have a panic attack in the middle of the fucking bridge because I did not know this part. I just thought it was a solid concrete walkway. You know, just might have some flexibility, like on Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. That's not the case. So I'm like walking, these wood planks are like kind of diverting underneath my feet. I'm like, okay, great. But it's like if you go on the walkway, it's the bridge, then the fucking the highway, then the river. So I'm like, at least if I fall, I'll just get dinged by a car and that'll be it. I don't have to worry about the extra 500 feet that until you hit the water, or however fucking tall it is. So that was fun. Ended up walking all the way through to downtown Brooklyn, getting caught in the middle of the shopping center, which was probably the worst part of the whole experience. And then Katie needed her keys back. She gave me a set of keys, just in case I needed to come back to her place on Staten Island and stay the night. She comes through. Okay, this is how congested, at least this is a broad example of New York. So this is in downtown Brooklyn. From where I was at the shopping center to Coney Island was 7.5 miles, approximately. It took us 45 fucking minutes to get there.
Goddamn.
Like, they have, like, red and green stoplights, like, at regular intersections, and then they have, like, these, like, throughway intersections that that they have stop signs. So people were just, like, cutting into traffic, like, you're hearing the fucking siren, like, get the fuck out of the way, and people, road rage and shit. So, like, and we're taking back ways and shit, and I'm getting to Coney Island, she's like, well, it was funny because when she picked me up, she just thought I was going to hand her the keys and be on my way. I fucking jumped in her car, and she didn't even, like, see, she was like, oh, what's going on? I'm like, give me the Coney Island, we're fucking going there. She's like, oh, we're going. Fucking, so, got the Coney Island. Actually, it was pretty cool. Like, for the most part, they cleaned it up pretty well. There's still some plastic particles on the beachhead and whatnot, but
As there should be.
yeah, you basically just take a like a county fair, shrink it down, put a beachhead on it, put a lot of fucking good-looking people. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But no, it was a good time. Then I decided to go back, and ended up in the middle of like hour fucking subway ride. Ended up in the middle of downtown Brooklyn. My phone's dying. I've got my charger, and I've got like $40 on me because of an incident that happened the day before, which I'll get to after this. And I call up my dude because I heard this place called House of Yes in Williamsburg. Which is another hour subway ride from where I was. I call him up because I knew he'd been to Brooklyn a few times and probably had been to this place. He's like, dude, go. You'll have a great fucking time. If you get the chance, fucking go. Like, don't miss out on this. I'm like, okay. The great thing, though, is that they have charging stations.
Yeah.
I stood there for about 35 minutes to get an extra, like, 20% of juice on my phone. Like, people were passing by just, like, looking at me, and I'm like, well, fuck, I'm just standing here.
That's what they're there for.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to fucking use them. So I end up taking the extra hour subway ride. I'm like, you know what? This doesn't work out. I'm just going to take it, which is another hour to get back to where I was in Harlem. And the people I was staying with obviously have their keys. So, like, I have to call them and, like, let them know and shit like that. And I didn't want to get left out. So I walk in, and it's free admission. And it was a Thursday night, so I guess this Thursday night, they have new wave theme. So it's, like, all, like, the late 70s, early 80s, like, pop songs that fucking 93.5 and the classic stations play now.
Yep,
like,
yep,
fucking,
yep.
you know what I'm talking about. So I go in, I'm like, and they're playing Depeche Mode, and I'm like, okay, I already like this place. So I go up and I get a beer, and, I'm fucking dancing. They got strobe lights, and they got fucking drag queens and shit dancing the stage. And I'm like, everyone's having a great time. It's a great vibe, and I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, this is actually pretty cool. End up meeting a couple chicks, and one thing led to another, and I'm calling Blaine, friend of a friend that I was staying with, and it was pretty fucking funny. I was like, hey man, I got this thing cooking. I'm in Brooklyn right now. I might end up in Queens. I know you guys got to work in the morning, and I got to leave tomorrow. And he's like, you go out and have a good time. He's like, honey, you go out and have yourself a good time. Like, we'll talk in the morning. We'll get everything worked out. I'm like, fuck yeah, fucking love you. Like, came through in the clutch. Ended up fucking having a great time, whatnot. Ended up coming back. Everything worked out. Went to LaGuardia. Got frisked by the TSA. That was fun.
Frisky.
Yeah, came back. Got on the plane. Plane ride was not nearly as anxiety filled. I will say though that both times, this was funny. Like the anxiety that I had, it wasn't like overwhelming when I was in the air, but I felt like I was on like sitting on top of one of those Acme trap doors, like in Looney Tunes and shit. And I thought at any moment the pilot would be like, oh, boop. You know, that was the wackiest part. But the only bad, quote unquote, bad part about the whole excursion in New York City, and Mr. Bartender, if you're listening to this, I just want to let you know, I don't hate you for doing this because everything worked out. But I will say, please be aware the next time someone gives you their debit card to run a tab. I went to this place called McDougal's, an ale house and near the Village. So I go in because there's this place called Cafe Wah, which is like a famous music venue that I had a friend recommend to me, and it's down the street from the Comedy Cellar. So I'm like, fuck yeah, I've heard about these places, want to see them. You know, they weren't open. I get down there like 5:45. They don't open till like 8. Or the first show, the Comedy Cellar goes on at like 7. Like the opening show, I thought was like 7:30. So I'm like, across the street, this place called McDougal's Ale House on McDougal Street in the Village. I don't know why I muddled my cough. That's where it is, McDougal's. But I get down there, and I'm just sitting there. It's kind of like a lower tier bar, just walkway and shit, and you know it's $15 minimum to start a tab. So I'm like, fuck it, you know, I'm gonna be here for a couple hours, so you know, I'm talking with some of the locals, and they're asking, oh, what are you in town for? And blah, blah, you know, vacation and shit like that. And I told them what I was doing. And they're actually, it was kind of funny because they're all like really impressed. I'm like, yeah, went to Harlem, Central Park, fucking Manhattan, came through and went through the Bronx a little bit, and Spanish Harlem, and blah, blah, blah. And this one lady, she's like, I've lived here for 8 years and I haven't seen that much shit. I'm like, what? She's like, basically said, I was like, you're doing more in 3 days than I've done in like 8 years of living here. And and even the bartender who looked like fucking Eric. Yeah, straight up. Like, and the bartender who looked like a 45-year-old Eric Stoltz, fucking drug dealer in Pulp Fiction. He even told me, he's like, wow, man, you're trying to see everything. I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to get it all in. You know, I don't know if I'll ever be able to come back here. Like, if this is the first time and possibly the only time I'm here, I'm going to get it all fucking in. So I gave my card, and I noticed in the back there's a couple dartboards. I haven't played darts in a while. Fucking give my ID, gives me a set of darts. I go back and play a couple, like 3 games, just fucking killing time and shit. I come back, I take a piss, order another round. When I come back, sit down after I order, he's transferring out for the next bartender to come in. Okay? So he's counting his cash and his drawer and shit, tabbing and asking people, like, do you want to carry over? Do you want to tab out? Shit like that. And they had all the debit cards. You give me that? Thank you. They had all the debit cards in a fucking solo cup. And I'm sitting there. And I'm sitting there just having a beer and shit. Like, it's about time. I'm like about to leave. And I look at this. I talked to the bartender. This chick. She was actually ended up being a very nice lady. About, I'd say late 20s, early 30s. And I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to cash out. And she's like, okay, cool. You know, what's the name? I tell her my name. She's like, they had like an iPad with the fucking little Apple swipe thing.
Yeah.
It's a cool thing now. And she's like looking it up. She's like, you're already tabbed out. I'm like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm still here.
That's a load of malarkey, dude.
Yeah, that's a fucking white fat load of malarkey. And she's like, you're already tabbed out. I'm like, I don't have my card. She's like, and like her face just dropped. She's like, let me double check. I'm like, yeah, please do. That'd be great. That'd be really fucking good. She goes over. She's like checking all the cards, seeing it, and I'm telling her the description of a card, my debit card. I had a red card, MasterCard, and it was a not vanity, but fucking when you get a new debit card and they're like,
yeah, the selection of
the selection of
cards
logos
you
and
can
shit, like,
get.
and around here, if anyone knows, it's like based off of the colleges. So like here would be like UT or Ohio State or Michigan State or Michigan or whatever.
Crazy Go Nuts University.
Yeah, like fucking blowjob academia, and yeah, and mine was Fair State Bulldogs. Fair State's some technical school up in northern Michigan, or like right above the border, or like in Temperance or some shit. Some like farm school. It's literally like, I looked it up. It's literally
like Terra,
a
like out in Fremont.
yeah, it's a fucking building with a cornfield around it. It's literally what it is. And I told her, and one of the reasons I got that card was because some shit went down when I was in San Francisco a couple years ago, and my wallet ended up going MIA. So in order to try to avoid shit like this, I ended up getting this goofy ass fucking logo that I knew no one would have. No one would have. And so she's like looking around. She's looking around for it. She's like, I can't find it. It's not already here. Double check. She's like, you're already tabbed out. And I'm like, you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking like really?
Yeah. Worst
Man,
possible
I still
thing
got
that could
one more
happen.
day in this motherfucker. And then I fly out. Like, don't do this. Not right now. Please. No. She's like, let me call the guy. I forget his name. I think his name was like Brad or John or some white. And she's like, yeah, he tabbed you out on another guy's tab. Ran your card and gave it to him. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like,
Well, shit.
son of a bitch. And she's like looking it up. She's looking up the tab. Dude ran a fucking $50 tab.
Goddamn.
Yeah, like three. His girlfriend had like 3 vodka and cranberries, and he had 3 beers. So which is, if you ever drink it in New York, that's how much it is.
6 drinks, $50.
Yeah.
Put it in my hand, little man.
Yeah, no fucking shit. So she's like, all right, here. So like she was very calm about it. She didn't freak out. It's like, let me call him. Maybe he put it somewhere. I had my phone charging underneath the bar. He was nice enough to let me charge my phone there. I'm like, can you put it, like, check the phone, like, see if it's underneath it. No, it's not underneath it. And she's like, she called him. She's like, he said he's on his way to Brooklyn right now on the train. He can't come back. He's not going to be able to come back for a couple of hours. I'm like, it's like, you can maybe wait around. A lot of people who come here are regulars. Maybe they'll come back. And I'm like, I'm not fucking taking that chance.
Yeah.
I've had this happen before. Granted, it might have been my fault. A lot of shit went down. That's a completely different story for a completely different podcast. But I'm like, I'm not chancing this shit. And she's like, well, I'll see about reversing the charges. She was able to, which is fucking great. And she looks at me. She goes, well, I can't tab you out, so have a good night. So I got a little bit of free beer out of it.
You should have tried to get one for the road.
I wanted to, but I didn't want to be a dick about it. So I slid her some cash for her as a tip, as a thank you. Went right across the street, called the bank, canceled the card out, and I start calling people. I'm like, is there any way you can like wire me some money? Because I found it's like 7:58. There's a Western Union like a little less than half a mile down the street, which I didn't even think existed in New York. Well, apparently, thankfully, still fucking do. I start calling people. I'm like,
who would have thought there'd be a Western Union on the east side?
Yeah, no shit. I'm like, is there any fucking way? We start calling people. I get a hold of my friend Danny, who's now officially a sweetheart. Love you, babe. I'm kidding.
Oh, Danny.
Like, yeah, like one of my besties. And I go over. She's like, "What's up? What's going on?" I told her. She's like, "All right, give me a few minutes. I'll get back to you." And she's like, "How much do you need?" I told her, and she's like, "We're gonna give you X amount," which is way more than I actually asked for. Thanks again, guys. Her and Garrett. And she's like, "We're on our way to a fucking Walmart right now, which is like down the street from where they live." How far away is the Western Union? I'm like, it's about 15 minutes away. I get to this Western Union at like fucking 8:15, 8:20. It closes at 9. I walk in and I look at the dude. I'm like, "Look, some shit went down, blah, blah, blah. Is it cool if I just post up here until I get this fucking figured out?" And he's like, "Yeah, dude, it's cool. It's cool, man." Like, whoa, like, you know, that was real quick. That was one of the cool things too about like both places. Like a lot of the locals, regardless of whether or not, however long they had lived there, really cool. Like they fucking really don't mind helping out.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you expect, especially from places like that, you know, they tell you to go fucking pound sand and fuck off. Not the case, at least in my experience. I'm sure other people have had different experiences, but that's mine. And so I'm standing there. 8:45, 8:50, I get a text. It's like, "All right," she sent me the receipt with the fucking code number. And I'm like asking her, like, "All right, she's like, "Do you have your ID?" Like, I asked her, like, "Did you use your full name?" Blah, blah, blah. I get the receipt printed out like 8:55, or the ticket. Fucking walk up to the register. I'm like, "Please tell me you can cash this out." She's like, "Let me check." I'm like, "Oh, fuck." Looks at it. She's like, "Yeah, I can do it." 8:58, she hands me the fucking cash. I'm like, "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Praise be." Went fucking,
Praise the Lord.
yeah. Ended up having a solid night at this place called Bo's Lounge in Manhattan. It's closer to, because Harlem's like upper Manhattan, because Manhattan's like the huge swath of New York.
Yeah.
Bo's is like somewhere in between. Still took like solid 25-minute subway ride. So got it all figured out. Fucking ended up having a killer night the next night in fucking Brooklyn and Queens. Got on the subway the next day. Fucking ended up having, since I didn't have my fucking debit card, I couldn't get a lift from where I was at to the airport. So I ended up having to take almost an hour and a half bus ride from fucking Harlem to LaGuardia, because there's like 85 stops along the way. And ended up having to go to a different terminal. When I went through Detroit on the way to Boston airport, they still was like, you know, they're very lenient about like keeping shit in your pockets on going through the scanner and shit. No, not in, I should have known, but I was like, just like, didn't even fucking think about it. I still had stuff in my pocket. "Oh, you got to go through again and take stuff in your pocket." I'm like getting out of line. I'm just like Jesus Christ. And I have my elastic knee braces on, and the guy stops me after I go through. He's like, "Are those for medical purposes?" I have to scan those, and he scanned them. Because he had to scan them, he had to fucking fill me up and shit. And I had to run them through again. I'm just standing there like halfway embarrassed because there's like half these people are in line just like looking at me. I'm like, fuck. But that was, I guess, in very many case and points, that's kind of the extent of my recent vacation. Any of you still sticking with this? We're gonna take a minute for ads and sponsorships. So we'll be right back with the Moon Tower Podcast. Your host, Ian Hubbard. This podcast is sponsored by you. Protests have now erupted outside the Nike headquarters as sweatshop workers are now declaring to be the true face of the brand. They are claiming the All Lives Matter motto. In finance, the SEC has now declared that the child pedophilia ring run by the Catholic Church is a true white-collar crime. Also in sports, we are looking at a promising Cinderella story. Nate, you brought this to me earlier. Just found about this today. Division 3, the home university academic college of the Fighting Angry Goats are now about to play their first game this upcoming Saturday. Be a few days from now, a couple days from now. Now that it's Thursday morning. This is a promising young team, isn't it?
I have to say that the Goats are the most promising team since the Crazy Go Nuts University's Doughheads.
The Crazy Gonads University Doughheads?
Yes.
Now that was Division 4, wasn't it?
At least Division 4.
Well, this is Division 3, so at least might be televised during playoff season if they make it. But this is the Fighting Angry Ghosts. This is their like this podcast. It is the inaugural season. First year head coach Brett Stinkwater, I think is his name. Stinkfister, excuse me. And with quarterback Jimmy Doppelganger.
Ah, yes.
Yes, the quarterback. At least I know, at least from the information you gave me, is a walk-on. Walk off. Yes, he left campus and then went to here, and they just took him because he could play. We are looking at this emerging sports story. Like I said, potential Cinderella story. That's going to be something we keep an eye on. They're looking to play their first game this Saturday, or is it next Saturday? Next Saturday, excuse me. Beg my pardon. I am fresh to this news, as you are as well. They are playing the Shawshank University Morgan Freemans.
Yep, all clones of Morgan Freeman.
Oh, wow. They're going to have a tough time.
One of them.
Are they all 65 years old?
Well, in some places they're 65. In other places they're 64.
That's going to be difficult. I'm told if you're at all knowledgeable of football talk, the Fighting Angry Goats run a 4-3 defense with a traditional West Coast offense, regular special teams. So we are looking at this emerging story because, like I said, and from the information you just gave me, literally hot off the fucking press, this is their first season. This is their, last year they were non-existent. Now they're trying to...
Totally unheard of. Absolutely.
And they are playing in which division of Division 3?
Second division of Division 3.
The second division of Division 3. That's a tongue twister. Well, we're going to be looking at that with Brett Stinkfister as the head coach. Was a interim coach under Jim Tressel at Youngstown and Ohio State, and was not kept on by Urban Meyer, thankfully. So we're going to be looking at that. As far as entertainment, this is not a dictatorship. This is democracy. We are planning on having some local talent come around eventually, whenever they get around it, I should say. I'm getting a little tongue-tied here at the late hour.
Tongues get tied.
I'm trying to keep it together, Nate. This is the first time, so forgive me, folks. But no, we got a lot of exciting things coming up for you guys. Once again, appreciate you guys staying around. Hopefully you keep listening. This is the Moon Tower Podcast. Your host, Ian Hubbard. Technical advisor, Nate Fitch. Over and out.
Go suck a fatty.
Be good, folks.
Whether it be the marijuana or a dick, I don't care.
Or it could be marijuana dick. And until next time.
Smoke marijuana out of the dick.
Live long and prosper.